Hey everybody, figured I'd do an update on the GT500. Just about wrapped up here with it. All we're doing is waiting for an alternator right now. This car's got a 14 volt battery in it, and the alternator that was in it wouldn't charge at the required voltage. So we've got one on order, and we're just waiting for that to show up. But other than that, car's done. So I figured I would just kind of give an update about it. We've got the keyless entry working. So these cars, the windows are rather tricky. So this is all done through the smart wire. If you notice, don't mind that, that's just a Holly cable hooked up to a Motion Raceworks cable saver. So it's all done. The car door locks work with the ignition off because you need the door locks to work in order to get in the car. We can disable that if you park somewhere kind of sketchy where somebody'd have to actually pick the lock or break a window to get in it. The interior isn't complete because I don't have the whole interior, and the owner of the car is going to wind up pulling a lot of the stuff out, put carpet in it and whatnot. And I'm still waiting on some mounts for this and some button covers to be made. So anyway, this is the keypad for the smart wire, and there's a couple different additional things on here that you don't necessarily need, but the functionality is what we were after with this. So what's automated here is, if you notice, let me just throw this over here. If you notice that there's interior lighting here, so when the doors close, lights go off, right? So if we go over here to the other door, I can put the key in the ignition, show you kind of the rest of it. So you open the door. So these are your interior lights, but this is just some of the interior lighting that's in the car. So this is automated. So ignition off, but power still on to the car. The interior lights will pop up, so you can get in the car when it's dark out, and you see where you're going. There's also, we put the key in the ignition. There we go. Turn ignition on. We don't have this mounted. The mounting setup that's here for it isn't going to fit. So the owner of the car didn't have the dash on hand when he made the mounting system. So he's gonna have to tweak that a little bit. But the biggest struggle with these cars is the power windows, right? So you want override control over there. So one touch, bam. So and then notice that the window does not come all the way up, right? Because it has to clear this the trim and weather seal here, right? So the weather stripping. So when you close the door, it closes the window. When you open the door, it drops the window, so it'll clear the weather seal. And then you got kind of sweet. I got that all working. The smart wire is controlling everything in the car. Majority of everything in the car. There's a leash 4-way relay in here as well to control the 3 fuel pumps and the air compressor in the trunk. So if we want to look in the trunk, if you stay there, I'll go on the other side. We can hit the trunk release right here, and if we look at the trunk, when the trunk opens, there's lights that open up in the trunk because you would need the lights only on when you're in the trunk, right? So there's also additional lighting in here for if you needed more lighting back here for servicing, filling up the intercooler tank, you just press a button. Those are hot all the time as long as the power's on the car. So there's a couple of those under here. There's also a couple of these these pretty slick Lux lights. There's a little bit of a mess here. I haven't tidied this up 100% yet because I just haven't done it yet. So there you go. So when we close the trunk, you know, to shut those lights off, so we're using the factory switches in the trunk, in the doors. And so if you ever do this, a little tip, these switches are normally closed, which means, normally open, which means when they close, like when you close the trunk, it actually opens the circuit. So like all the factory, the door switches, the limit switches on the windows, the trunk, all that stuff is normally open, so it's backwards. As well as, if you ever do this to your own car, and do not contact me to do another one of these. This has been the absolute toughest job that I've ever done, and I miss race cars. So, so as well as all your light switches too. So these are all normally closed, like they fail closed, right? So the circuit's closed. So you have to open the circuit in order for the signal to be there. So using a smart wire, that's just programming. Instead of it saying, you know, this switch equal to, it'll say this switch not equal to. So the other option for these interior lights is the factory dimmer switch. So if we roll this factory dimmer switch up, we've got interior lights. So if he's driving on the road, he wants to turn on interior lights, he can. There's also, stay there, some more map lighting, I guess is what you would call it, right? So like you have overhead map lighting, you know, with a push of a button. That's on all the time, so the ignition does not have to be on. There's also a master override that will turn on our Lux lighting. So it'll turn on our interior lighting and our Lux lighting. And I could program that to also turn on the trunk light with the trunk closed if we need to. I just kind of don't see the need to do that because the trunk should be open if you're going to be back there. You know what I'm saying? So the Lux lighting that is in here is this here. So there's some up in the fender wells, and these are actually pretty sweet. So I just zip tied them up out of the way, but these are magnetic, and they come with like a 20-foot lead or 10-foot lead, something like that. So you just slap them up there in the fender well, and if he needed to use these for something, he could grab a hold of this and, you know, shine this wherever he wanted up in the engine bay, or, you know, wherever he wanted to, so that he'd be able to see, you know, whatever he was working on. So the intention with this car is drag week style events, drag and drive, sick week, whatnot. So the thought process behind this was to make it easy to work on, easy to work with, and all the functionality that goes along with, you know, having to put 1,000 miles on a car in a week. So there's this is actually a pretty slick idea, but this is also done through the smart wire and the ECU. But this is a pump out switch, right? So you turn that on and hook up a quick connect here, and we can pump out the fuel tank if you wanted to change fuels, right? So just go under here, open your hood, go under here, hook this up, you know, to a 10-gallon tank or a 5-gallon tank or whatever, and use your fuel pumps. I've got limit overrides as well in there with the ECU on for fuel level, so that you don't run the pump dry. So it'll run for X amount of time until it reaches a certain fuel level, and then it'll shut off automatically. So my thought process on this was, if you left the switch on and you started talking to somebody, you don't want to run the pumps dry for too long. So, you know, if you forgot about it, won't matter, because the ECU and the smart wire will tell it to stop it, and it'll stop. So this car has also got it's got air conditioning, power steering, it's got everything. Gear vender's being controlled through the smart wire and the Dominator. You know, high beam, low beam, fog light, reverse, brake, all 4-way, all that kind of stuff, right? All the factory stuff. blower motor. Oh, also done through smart wire up here, which is wipers. So that's for any of you wiring guys that may be watching this. This was a hard one. This is also about, I would say this is probably about 12 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. So this is beyond the typical 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. We're actually at 12 pounds here. So there's a lot of stuff underneath the hood of this car. The blower makes it rather difficult to do anything behind the engine. It makes it impossible to do anything behind the engine. And then as well as having all of the factory accessories, as well as a extremely robust cooling system. So this is the factory fan. We've got a fan controller on it, so it will ramp up and down based off of temperature. That's all done through the ECU. We also switched over the car to, so these are these mod motor cars. They have a VR, like 2-wire sensor. So if we look in here, this is from Redline Performance, Matt Bell, up there near Chicago, I think. He makes these little brackets, and what it does is it converts your cam sensor, and the crank sensor is buried there behind the air conditioning compressor, but it converts your cam and crank over to a 3-wire Hall effect. So this was something that I was pretty adamant about doing. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, I run the stock sensors. That's fine, I don't care. I trust this more. So, this is also a good upgrade in my opinion if you've got a mod motor car. I believe he makes them for Coyotes as well. What else we got? We've got, you probably look down on the floor here. As far as sensors go, you see a little red dot. We got ride height. We got front ride height. We got 4-corner shock travel. We got, there's a VPS in this one. There's there's every sensor under the sun. So there's the VPS. We've got, shifter EGTs, the gear vendor, the front wheel speed. So front wheel speed's on the factory hub. He did a pretty awesome job of machining a reluctor to fit onto the factory hub. It's not the factory reluctor, I don't believe, unless it's the factory reluctor and I'm just an idiot, I don't know. Very well could be. We've also got ambient air temp, oil temp, coolant temp, coolant pressure. Literally just, start naming sensors, they're in here, So the smart wires controlling everything from the trans cooler fan to the intercooler pump fan, or intercooler pump. These blowers have a, there's the intercooler up underneath it here. So he's got a big cell in the back for the intercooler itself. And then we're controlling that through Holley. So Holley and smart wire. So when we there we go. So when we turn the master enable on, right? So when he turns on the master enable, it will automatically turn on the water pump, right? So there's our tank, there's our pump, there's a temp sensor. So this will tell us, we're automating everything, right? So we turn it on when master enable's on. We can turn it on based off of throttle position. We can turn it on. There's a ton of different ways we can turn it on and off, right? That's the beauty of using a smart wire for your programmable logic when it comes to power distribution, integrated with the Holley. So the air compressor is based off of, the ignition's got to be on, battery's got to be above X voltage. We can also set that to only come on above X RPM, so we know that the alternator's charging, so we don't try to kill the battery. There's a lot of things you can do to make the entire process smoother, right? More automated and smoother, and less likely to give you any problems. So another thing that I highly suggest, if you've got a car that you care about at all, switch all the bulbs over to LED. It's cheap enough. we buy a ton of LED bulbs, but this thing's 14 volt, which means it's going to charge at 16.5, and LEDs are good for right around 22 volts. So you won't burn up a bulb. They last a heck of a lot longer, and the amperage draw on all of these circuits is substantially lower, which means when those hog ass fuel pumps turn on, the it's not going to start dimming lights and whatnot. So if you break an alternator belt or blow an alternator belt off or something like that, you're more likely to make it to an auto zone than you are, if you had to run halogens going down the road. So, we put LEDs in the headlights, we put LEDs in the fog lights, in the turn signals, the markers, everywhere has LEDs. So this thing should, it should last a very long time and not kill a battery. So it's just a little tip from the years of doing all this stuff over the years. I've said, everything should just have LED no matter what. All of his interior lighting obviously is LED as well. So I want to say like your typical halogen headlights draw somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 amp, 14 amp. An LED headlight, I believe this car draws right at 2.5 amp. So substantial difference, right? But anyway, just kind of want to give an overview on the GT500. I'm sure Dan is anxious to get this one back. So once we have an alternator, I'll fire it up, and he'll be ready to make his next move. So anyway, thanks for checking it out. See you.